We would like to invite Professor Sudipto Ghosh, Metallurgical and Materials Engineering from IIT Kharagpur. His topic will be In Search of Top-Down Mathematical Laws. I'd like to make an introduction to Professor Ghosh. Professor Sudipto Ghosh received his BTech, MTech, and PhD degrees in Metallurgical Engineering from IIT Kanpur. His research specializes in mathematical modeling of materials processes, in particular solidification and high-temperature deformation processing at different length scales. His significant research contribution has been in continuous casting and casting of bulk nano composites. Dr. Ghosh has recently started working in the area of lithium-ion batteries and material science in ancient India. At IIT Kharagpur, he's involved with several sponsored R&D projects. Since 1995, Dr. Ghosh has been directly trained in the area of science and spirituality by Dr. T.D. Singh, also known as His Holiness Bhaktiswarup Damodar Swami, a well-known authority on Vedanta and science. He has trained more than 30 faculty and scholars at the Bhaktivedanta Institute, Kolkata, and IIT Kharagpur. So please join me to welcome Professor Sudipto Ghosh on stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is that here? Which is the next? For next one. So yeah, this is the title, In Search of Holistic, because holistic means, taking care of everything. Like we are doing here science spirituality. So the holistic is the thing, and top down. And along with me, we have some of the research scholars, Pawan Kumar, and he's from Kharagpur. Dheeraj Dubey, he's from TIFR, Department of Physics. Abhinav Sinha, Abhinav is here. And Professor Devashish Khan from, so we have actually worked this out together. And this is dedicated to my actually inspiration. So in 1995, I actually met him when I was in IIT Kanpur that time. And the instruction, and the inspiration he gave me to work on the theory of the material elements of which is given in our Vedas and the Bhagavatam. So now coming down, what do we mean by top-down and bottom-up approach? People can have different kind of their own terminology. So I am referring to top-down law, a top-down law and a bottom-up law. So let us see. A very important thing is this, our existence, there are different length and time scale. So very, very large scale, the universe is a collection of galaxy, Earth. Then you come down, below the microscope. So these are the things you see below the microscope, and these are really only inference. They are smaller and smaller, but they are only inference. Now usually, when we try to understand a physical phenomena, how we interpret it. Suppose somebody is throwing a stone to play with the fishes and the water is getting disturbed. So how you, in the physics, as a physicist, how we'll try to analyze this? The very common, one simple way that, okay, it is my desire, and that's a spiritual way, and my consciousness is fundamental, and I have this kind of desire, and I direct the body, and then things go like this. But how possibly a physicist will like to see? You say the best way you can describe this is to treat the entire system as a collection of fundamental particles and model it. But unfortunately, we don't have the computation power to do that. So we have to come up with other things. And another level is you see it, your whole body and everything as a collection of atoms and molecules. And you can see it as larger objects. as collection of cells. So you can actually understand the phenomena at different length scale. And usually, in physics, we say the most fundamental explanation we'll say is at the lowest length scale. We see the whole thing as a collection of electrons and protons and so on. So it's like this. So, so the movement of cloud, if I try to analyze, then why it is behaving, somebody will say, no, the pressure, volume, temperature of this substance has a particular kind of relation. So they have some kind of relation. For like ideal gas, you have PV equal to nRT and so on. Now, somebody will ask that then, why the gas, why the PV and T, they are connected in this way? The answer will not tell you that, no, it is like this only. This is the basic fact of life. You will not say like that. You will say it is like this because atoms and molecules, they are having this kind of velocity distribution. And somebody will say why, and they have this kind of vibration, rotation. And why they are doing like this? You will not say, no, that's the end of the story. You will say, no, the reason for this is that the electron clouds and the nucleus, they are quantum mechanically interacting like this. Had I the computer power, a very powerful computer which could do that, then I will take this whole cloud and actually I will treat it as a collection of electrons and protons. That is the best thing. This is the general approach. We'll never say that something here is a basic fact of the law, or something here is a basic fact of law. So like we say in spirituality, sarva karana karanam. So we like to go to the lowest scale and explain things from there. And then say that, of course, we don't have the computation power, so we cannot do that, but this would have been. So this is causing this, this is causing this, this is causing this. So this is what I mean by the bottom-up mathematical laws. So from here, I generate some information, how the atoms in the molecules are behaving, and from their movement, I come to the thermodynamic laws and its behavior, and from there, I take the characteristics and to solve for the cloud, and like this we go. By top-down, I mean it's the reverse. What I mean to say, it may sound crazy, but that the atoms are moving in this way because the pressure, volume, and temperature, they have to be related in this way. This is what I mean by the top-down. Okay, so that's the meaning of like this. Now, very interesting is the fact that if you look quantum mechanics very, very carefully, very, very minutely, the whole philosophy and idea behind is actually the existence of atoms and electrons and things. You cannot picture anything. Actually, we have something called wave function. Wave function is something which is spread in the entire universe. It is a field, just like you have electric field, magnetic field, you have the wave function field. The only difference is it's a complex number field. That's the only difference, but it's a continuum field all across the world. It's not a submicroscopic object. And then, what you are measuring, actually, is a classical inference. So there is actually, very strictly speaking, there is nothing called atom and anything. For example, you see, look here, this is the famous Stern-Gerlach experiment. I think this pointer is not, it's not showing the points, I mean. Yeah. You have some better pointer or something. Anyway, so basically, if you look is, how we are detecting that this has a plus spin and minus spin. The whole principle is actually classical. The field is classical. We are assuming it to be a classical particle with a spin like this. The whole picture, there is nothing atomistic here, actually. So our observations are all done by classical equipments. They follow the classical mechanics, and we are assuming the electron and the particles which we are not seeing. We are inferring only. Quantum mechanics deals with objects which we infer. Okay, so we are assuming them to be like a classical behavior, and so basically you are starting from a continuum field, and this is also a continuum macroscopic which we are seeing. So in a way, this atomic world is not there. So it's a very interesting, this is a famous statement by David Bohm. Electrons are wave, means it's a field, which is again a continuous thing, but they interact with the observer like a particle. Okay. Now, this top-down and few other things, it's there in the spiritual traditions. In spiritual tradition, if something happens, we don't say that it is because the electrons, clouds were behaving like this, I desire to throw the stone. No, it's that I am a conscious being. It's that the opposite. So it's like the Lord Krishna gives the example of a chariot model, like the soul is there, and you see the hierarchy. So Krishna says the basic gross body, the senses are higher than that, and since there is a subtle part also, and then the mind, and then false ego, and then the intelligence, and then the soul. So it's the other way. And if you look at the Bhagavad model, the control goes like this, the information goes like this, and it also comes like this. So this is there in every spiritual tradition. Why something happened? Because you did a sin like this, and the reaction came. So you don't start with and that kind of thing. So from Vedantic as well as any religious tradition, so if you really have to go further in this science spirituality dialogues and really trying to synthesize them, as was the vision of Dr. T.D. Singh and many others, we need top-down laws in the modern scientific framework also. So now I'll quickly tell you, I mean, already our Vasudev Rao, he has actually explained very nicely what the different elements and things are. So I'll quickly go through. What are the, as a scientist, when we look at the Sankhya Darshan explained by Lord Kapila, is not, by the way, the atheistic Kapila. There are many, you find people with the same name, that's okay, but he is Lord Kapila, who gave the theistic Sankhya philosophy. He gave the theistic material science, a holistic one, where God is there, living entity is there, and all kinds of, different elements of matter are there, atoms are there. He's talking about atoms, calculation of time from atoms. If you look, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're talking about calculation of time. So as a scientist, what I find very, very interesting, so fundamental elements of nature and their fundamental properties defined from their interaction with respect to the consciousness. We are all consciousness, nobody can deny that. If consciousness is not there, then I cannot talk science, I cannot see you, I cannot think. So it's a basic fact, as Niels Bohr is saying. So what do you mean by fundamental element? Fundamental elements means you cannot break it further. It is not made up of anything. So the fundamental elements are actually defined with respect to the interaction with consciousness and existence of many non-local fundamental elements. So today Vasudeva was explaining that mind, intelligence, false ego. So these are kind of elements, they are non-local. They don't have any location in the physical space. This is very important to understand. And so all experience, just like, you put your hand in the cold water and you feel cold. So this cold experience is by the hand, or finally it is by the soul actually, according to the Bhagavad. Or when you are seeing under a microscope, actually finally the eye sees, and in fact, finally as per the Bhagavatam, soul. All experience, conscious experience, is by soul. And Vasudev made it very clear today morning. So this is the whole picture. of this. So we have this in the top, the spiritual, which actually is the conscious experiencer, and which has all the properties. It can think, it can feel, it can taste, everything. All the experience is done here. And anyway, so there is, now it's a big challenge, because possibly now this has started its inherent, capability. But well, after teaching for 30 years at least, we have some confidence. I will not get nervous like Funny and Pawan. So, but yeah, so there is a subtle and okay now. So there is a very, very interesting thing, which is very similar to the plateau kind of concept, and which Professor Penrose is also very much pushing. The existence of is similar to that. So, like, intelligence is a separate element. Now, how do you look? It's a very simple thing. You take two bodies, like Earth and Moon, and you say that they are attracting to each other by a force. F is equal to G into M1, M2 by R square. Now, you can interpret this in two ways. One way to interpret is that just like M1 and M2 are inherent property of these two bodies, the force, this relationship, M is equal to, so as we are talking, like yesterday's play also and this, everything has an inherent property. Okay, so like consciousness is the inherent property of the soul. Now this F equal to G M1 M2 by R square, is it the inherent property of these two bodies, or there is a separate element called intelligence which is having these mathematical calculations inherent in that? And according to the Vedantic philosophy, it's a separate world which has all the informations and all kind of the rules and logics are there, and anywhere in this world that element is also working. You call it an element, you call it a program, you call it a design, but it's like there is an algorithm, there is a hardware, and there is a software. So you can separate these. So you can think about these two bodies, okay? And Sankhya is so interesting and so deep. They will say the mass is because of some other element. They will say the form and color is because of some other element. The space it is occupying because of some other element called ether. And the ability to move is because of the element called air. So it's very, very interesting. In fact, I have not gone into particle physics. I have no depth, but what I understand, the Higgs boson, they are actually giving some kind of property like mass to the substance. So what we do is very simple. We take this idea and we say that there is a full, a separate existence called intelligence, false ego, and mind. And there is a separate existence from where the physical space starts. It starts because of the elements called ether. Ether is one. When ether comes in, then your physical space is there. And mind, intelligence, false ego, they are actually, they are in the non-locality domain actually. They don't have any physical locations. Okay. Now, something very, very simple, the idea which we are trying to put forward. You look at our body. Okay, we have mind, intelligence, false ego, consciousness. This is a separate thing. And this physical body is there. There is a hierarchy. Okay, and there is a to and fro information. And what we are trying to say is very simple. This body, I am not the only this living entity here. The total intelligence is there with me called Paramatma, and I am the living entity, and there are countless living entities in this body. Each cell, you take a cell and you try to clone it, it will become a living organism. So each cell is living entity, and according to Sankhya, even the molecules, even the finest atoms, they have individual lives. So it's very interesting. It's like this whole building, there is one, like the soul for this one living entity, and our bodies are also his body. So what we are doing, first we classified the subtle and this. Yeah, I think now it's working. Okay. So we divided like this, the subtle world and the physical world. And this physical world, just treat it as like the whole space, which is like a cellular automata. Okay, and each cell in the cellular automata is occupied by an atom. That's okay, I think, yeah. Okay, so I think I'll skip this. I mean, I'll maybe, yeah, so this is what I actually explained. And yes, the very interesting thing is, in quantum mechanics, this separation is very obvious. Because when you talk about the wave function is a pure mathematical world. It is not is it a physical field? So that idea is also inherent in quantum mechanics, because when we talk about wave function is a complex number. It is not an electric field. It just has informations. So this idea, and it is very strongly supported by Professor Penrose, he is saying they merely broaden, let me request such readers that it's from his book, very nice book he has written, A Road to Reality. So every physics student and mathematics student must read this. They merely, actually Dr. T.D. Singh had an interview with him. He brought the book and gave it to me. And he actually gifted me this one copy. So they merely broaden their notion. What we mean by the term existence can mean. The mathematical forms of Plato world clearly do not have the same kind of existence as do the ordinary physical objects, such as tables and chairs. They do not have spatial location, nor do they exist in time. I mean, this is something, his idea. So our this intelligence and false ego and subtle, this subtle, I am just separating it out. And, well, super consciousness, God, so we have an infinite intelligence. Okay, so I'll talk about it. See, I separated the subtle and this. In subtle, there is a total, complete information bank, which has the entire information of the universe. So it's like a infinitely sized cellular automata. What is cellular automata? It is just like a simple memory variable. You can say it like that. So if you have not heard about it, so those who are in computer science, they very well know many of them. So it's an infinite cellular automata, and then what we are coming to that. Okay, I think another thing which I liked in Sankhya philosophy, and which I am requesting today Dr. Sandeep Kumar and also, that see, personality is something irreducible. I mean, you cannot break it in terms of mass or anything. And so we need a very good mathematics for that. And there is a very good statement by one of the mathematicians. I will show it anyway. So now I come to a very simple example. I mean, we do this. This is actually molecular dynamics simulation, which I do. So it's a set of atoms, and I'm just showing a shearing process. I'm showing a shearing process, and it has, these are 3 nanoparticles. I mean, there are 3 regions I'm showing from a continuous atomic amorphous structure, and which I am subjecting to shear. And this is what, I mean, this is work in our lab only. I just took an example. This is very interesting. So in molecular dynamics, what we do is, there are atoms which are interacting. And we assume, nobody knows what laws it follows, but we assume it follows Newton's law. And we calculate what the force they are applying each other and how it evolves with time. So it is governed by some local interaction. But what is done is, it's very interesting, because we cannot simulate the environment in molecular dynamics, so we do in a very different way. Science does not have any scope of top-down law. It is just in simulation. But you can get a very good idea from there. What we do is that we have a classical molecular dynamic model which looks at the world as a collection of atoms. And there is a thermodynamic kind of model where a macroscopic model where how my temperature, how it is evolving with time. And what this does is this model keeps feeding what is the temperature, because temperature is average kinetic energy. Okay, so from the atomic picture, you pass this thing, and also from the positions you can tell what is the shear. So here is actually, it is passing these values. So the shear stress is related to the positions, and from the kinetic energy, velocity, the temperature, it is feeding, then it is telling, look my dear boy, I'm your boss. Whatever you do, but this should be the temperature, and this should be the shear stress. So this is exactly, I mean, you ask any material scientist, he will say, no, nature does not work in this way, because we are unable to take into account the environment such a big, so we are doing it like this. But let me tell you, from all the experiences with our simulation work, this does not affect the basic physics. That is very interesting. And why it doesn't, I will explain you. Because as you go in the lower time scale, the processes become so fast and so speedy. Like you suppose you have a water, and I think you just have some water, and what is the average speed of a water molecule? It is 500 meters per second. And what is the continuum flow velocity? If a what is flowing, it will be of the order of 0.5 meters per second. Now, these water molecules are interacting. I have to make very small change in each individual molecular velocity to set the average velocity to 0.5. So that is why when the control is coming from the top level, it will not appear to interfere with the local properties and the interactions. And the whole subjects of dislocation theory, defects, movement, diffusion, we study by controlling from the top also. But it does not change the basic nature of the local interaction and the physics. Okay. And so, if this kind of law is really operating, it's very interesting. We cannot verify, because atoms, electrons, it falls in your inferential zone. You cannot directly observe. And if you have understood what is Heisenberg uncertainty principle, we cannot do anything. We really don't know. So, a top-down law may be very nicely working, we don't know that. And there is no way you can disprove that, because of the same Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. And a very interesting fact, as I told you, that these water molecules, 500 meters on the average their speeds. I just want to make sure the average speed, that means the bulk, the water is moving like this, it is moving at 0.5. It's a very minor adjustment. Where is 600 meters per second, where is 0.1, 0.5 meter? So it really does not affect the local kind of and the physics of the process. Okay. So now, let me speak something. So the basic philosophy of what we are going to say is sharing of the body by different living entities. It's very important. And there is, so what we have done for the subtle, hierarchy of cellular automata. So this is let's say the total, the infinite intelligence, and it is connected with lower, another level of cellular automatas, which is again connected with other cellular. So both of them, they interact. So like these two models interact, these two models interact, these two models interact. Here also there is interaction. So it is a top-down approach, very simple. I want things to happen like this. So a next level gets the instruction, and it is exactly like that. So local things are also happening. And you will say, oh, everything is happening local. Why to bring another interference? So this is very interesting. Here, by Ghosh, God alone is in possession of mathematical, basis of psychic phenomena. So this is what we have been actually, we are talking. So I'm just putting in a simple, as a showing like cellular automata, but what are the different cells and what are their states, we really don't know. Because the psychological traits, we cannot, at this stage, we cannot put them, and that's what Ghosh is telling, God alone is in possession. What is the nature of these subtle elements? It is not so easy to understand. And Dr. T.D. Singh is to tell me that it is actually very simple, but when one comes to the stage of full realization, it is very simple, one can understand it. What happened? Okay. So physical space, the physical space again, I am dividing and into infinite number of cells, and here it is each cell is actually can be occupied by a paramanu. Paramanu is the atom given in Sankhya philosophy. It is not this atom. It is that atom which cannot be further divided. Okay, and consisting of combination of 5 gross elements shared as, so I am now looking this whole physical space as shared by different living entities. Okay, so I have my body, there are different living entities, finally there are atoms, and our total, the whole universe is the body of God. Okay, so same way, if you look at the intelligence model, so this actually is the total intelligence of the God. So whatever information is there here is also there. Whatever information is there here is also there. And actually it is, so this kind of picture, and well, that the individual physical bodies are connected with individual subtle bodies, and the total physical body is connected, and yeah, this is the picture. I may not be able to explain you so easily, and this is the infinite information. These are the finite. So they also have a direct interaction as per the Bhagavad, because it is revealed in our scriptures that sometimes the Lord directly reveals things to the living entity. So there is a connection. Otherwise, they are playing with this infinite intelligence through the physical matter. Okay, and well, this is I have already explained. Now in this direction, something very interesting. Cellular automata is something which is like rule-based. These are rules actually, simple kind of rules. Now somebody may say that, are you going to give all kinds of physical process in cellular automata? I will say yes, it is. Why not? The reason is that cellular automatas can very nicely simulate a differential equation. We describe the entire creation, everything at all length scales. Schrodinger equation is a differential equation. Your fluid flow heat transfer is also a differential equation. Your stress equations, everything. When you talk about the atmospheric physics, is also a differential equation. And it's very easy, and it is very well known in the community of cellular automata. If you read a very nice book by Stephen Wolfram, right? Yeah. So you see, this is a simple diffusion equation. So this is again Before I came, I asked Pawan, quickly give me a results. So a species is diffusing from here to here. It is moving according to this differential equation. So red means higher concentration. The same thing can be done if you just think this whole structure, the atomic arrangement of cellular automata, and you give some stochastic rules, and slowly you will see all the red things, they are going actually here. And it's very interesting that you can also actually incorporate a free will of conscious being. Because if you look at a large cluster of human beings, how they move, they all have free wills, you say that. But if you put on one side all with red shirt, and they are not possibly aware of their color, and this side all yellow shirts, and you ask them to interact. After some time, so they are having free will, but they are exactly going to follow a diffusional pattern. So without sacrificing the local laws, without sacrificing the free will, everything, we can actually have a very nice top-down description of the physical world. So, I mean, if there are more thoughts from you, for me this is over. Thank you very much. And what I will say is that really if science-spirituality dialogue has to move forward, we have to also make these changes, I mean, in the scientific laws. Like, for example, putting the psychological thoughts in axiomatic patterns, in a giving a mathematical laws, because if you look at the history of science spirituality, the things are, everybody is realizing. The scientists, they are writing in their own personal diaries, like ideas and opinion of Einstein. But really, within the scientific theory, it is a time that's what actually Dr. T.D. Singh meant actually, when he said synthesis, eventually coming to that. So we require this, a holistic approach where, number one, we can describe in a mathematical structure, in an axiomatic way, the different kinds of, like the three gunas and the different psychological traits, and connected. The whole, see, in this way, in the top-down approach, the whole universe is interconnected, otherwise it is not interconnected. Okay, and you really cannot say that this kind of behavior is more likely by matter, and that kind of behavior is less likely that matter will follow that. Because how you are going to say this? Can somebody guess? You are going to say by the ease of computation. And if you go by ease of computation, the top-down is more easy. Because if just I have to take a temperature value and assign it to the molecules, a collection of molecules, it is much easier. Because all I have to generate some random numbers and assign the velocity values as per a probability distribution. That's it. Now somebody will say you are bringing down this random number and probability, but if you look more closely, the software which generates the random number is actually a deterministic, it works on deterministic principle. So actually, possibly there is nothing random there. There is also an algorithm working out there. And so this is a kind of thought which is inspired by the Sankhya of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. If there are any questions, please raise your hands. We'll come to you with the mic. Yes.
Thank you very much for a very nice presentation. So I have a question, how the stochastic process that you mentioned and the free will go well together?
Yeah, actually, it's a good question. See, what happens is, there is a free will, like how I interact with professors here is some kind of a local. My free will comes from certain inputs which I am getting, which are very local. Okay, so free will, my free will is not like I am having the mystic power to see what is happening all throughout, and I'm not interacting with Okay. If I am a person who is interacting with 1000 together, I can control them. If I am higher than that, I am talking about the same level. I simply tell them, suppose I have some 10,000 employees, so they are disturbed. I just make one announcement. I am going to give you 1 lakh bonus for the puja. And the whole thing changes actually. But mostly what happens, I am talking at the same level. Okay, so when I gave you this example that all the red shirts here, they don't know what they are wearing red shirts, and yellow shirts here, and they're talking. It's like a crowd. Slowly we'll see the diffusion equation being obeyed. And it happens. In cellular automata, when we simulate diffusion, we do it for forestation, for sociological changes, all these things are done actually. So what is happening, you have to understand that these are, in cellular automata also, rules are local, usually. So I am trying to talk about bringing a different kind of thing, a top-down kind of thing. But they are local rules. And local rule, what happens is that a very interesting feature, as I told you, I don't know how, maybe a mathematician should go deeper into this, but what happens is that any macroscopic thing has a very minor significance adjustments at the local level. Just like I gave the example of collection of water molecule, okay, the same way. So if I have to do that, so local features, interactions, everything is there, and but there is a kind of a macroscopic thing which is happening.
You just now mentioned that, from Dr. Basudev's talks. So free will is a symptom of consciousness, is getting manifested through the machine, if you like, the subtle body. So mind, false ego, intelligence. And you mentioned that they don't have local properties, they are non-local in some sense.
Non-local means non-local, but its presence is given to the local. Because when you are non-local means it does not have any physical space. It doesn't have any coordinate.
Yeah, that is what I mean.
But it is connected with a very little physical domain. So in that sense, it's the information it is having a very little physical domain. I think we'll discuss during the lunch. He also has some question. Let me go to that.
Okay, thank you. You know, Sankhya is such a basic and very widely, is understood kind of a philosophical system in the tradition.
I don't think it is widely understood.
Let me.
Yeah.
One of the important aspects, the way it goes, that look, there is a system, there is a material system, and there is a, spiritual kind of a thing, and there is the two combine, and that's how ultimately the first stage what comes is called ahankar. Then, of course, mahati, which you can call buddhi and other things and all that can define. About particularly ahankar, the way the things are interpreted, that this is a false kind of ego. I think you also put as false ego. There I have tried to understand it more deeply in terms of the original formulations.
Actually,
let me. When two things mix, there is a new things which comes out. So this is a new product, combination of two systems, the physical and the spiritual part of it. So kar means processed. In Sanskrit, if you go to the word sanskar and ahankar and all these things and all that, basically this means that something which is processed. So ahankar is not false ego, it is the real identity of that particular thing which is produced by combination of the two things. I have tried to compare these ideas, and this is now because there is a series of births and rebirths and all that. So like we have in India, actually in 1976 I went to USA and I got my social security number. At that time it went into my mind, some individual, all these individuals which are there in United States of America and all in the past and present and all that, they will have a unique identity. You can always distinguish who is who and who is different from this. Now in India they introduced Aadhaar card. So what is happening in India, so many population and the past and present and future and all that. And they will all be identified very differently by one particular number or whatever you call it, Aadhaar card. So in my understanding, what I did is, I understood right from that time, the idea went into my mind, and I thought that Ahankar is kind of a
passport number or Aadhaar card
an
number.
Identity in the physical nature. And that may be not only in one generation with some kind of additional data added into it. This may be, I may be born, let's say, in the individual human being today. I may be born as a dog tomorrow. So same, but with some kind of changes. A tree may have, I may be. So Ahankar idea has, you rightly said that it is not properly understood. But my understanding is that there is something very natural identity. And like, the moksha, we define moksha when two things separate. Well, then it separates it, that doesn't remain. So ultimately dissolution of, let's say, the Ahankar basically would mean what is moksha ultimately, the way it is defined. I have tried to go into very deeper kind of definitions, whether Shankaracharya or other kind of systems about the Ahankar, and I found that really Ahankar is not false. It is the real, identity of an individual in different forms, in different ages, unless it comes to moksha and all that.
It's a matter of language, whether...
No, not a language, concept.
See, I'm telling you why it is false.
Right, not language.
Why it is false, let me tell you. We are human beings, we are telling that we are soul and other things. Can a dog say like that? He will just know what it is. That's why it's called false, because he is also a living entity. Just why it is false, I'll tell you. Suppose, as like today morning, Swamiji was showing, suppose you see a simulated world. And in the simulated world or in my dream, just let me speak. In the dream, if I am playing some role, okay, that is also something real, it exists. I am actually enjoying, I am actually having the conscious experience. And you cannot say one type of conscious experience is real, another is unreal. This false word is contextual. Why? Because when I wake up from the dream, then I say, oh, okay, I am like this. Suddenly I realize that one day I am seeing that I am a student of class 12, I have to appear for JEE and this, that. It was a torture in the dream. I just forgot my identity, and when I wake up, I was very relaxed. Let me tell you, I was very relaxed. The point is, that identity is in a way real identity. But when it is said false, it is to a context. So if you look at the Sankhya, and if you look at what we have heard in the realized, see, that's Dr. T.D. Singh is very much always emphasizing. He was telling that ultimately these things have to be realized. See, these elements, suppose our professor is here, he may be now, Indian restaurants are very common outside. I saw in Germany and other places also. So people are fond and, but usually I give some recipe, khichdi I give and say, so they are testing the whole thing together. But an Indian cook can immediately make out that this is coming because of this is because of this is because of this. So all the elements are mixed up, So that is where Dr. T.D. Singh is emphasizing that actually one has to go through the spiritual discipline. And he says, partly it is presentable, partly, with the intellectual mind one can comprehend. But because you don't know, rasgulla, okay, maybe one can say, okay, some sugar is there from the taste. But then what else is there? If you have not tested the components separately, it is very difficult to make out. So here also, the world is mixed up, like the electron, protons, neutrons, they are always together. Now how you can see or identify, it's not easy to, it's only in theory we do that, a separate electron in a box. But actually separating it out and having a cloud like that, it is not possible. So same way, so false word is, you have to understand, I think I understand, we have a real identity, and that real identity is throughout. Actually, you must go through the philosophy of Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya is giving an elaborate description of this, that in this consciousness, there is a temporary part and there is a permanent part. Okay, so but what happens today? Do I remember my identification when I was childhood? No, I don't remember. So but it is the same identity. Yes?
Prof. Ghosh, there's one more question by the student. Can we take one more question?
We will continue during our...
Thank you, sir. There is actually a doubt I had, might not be entirely related to your lecture. That I've read it somewhere that like after a few years, almost all of the molecules in your body gets replaced by a new set of molecules.
Yes.
So does this mean that the body has a new identity? Or
that's if you prove it to yourself. If I am going to prove to myself, that is the proof that I am not this body. Because I am the same person, I know that with this information, I am proving to myself that I am not this body. But you cannot prove to others because others don't know who you are. But for me, it is a proof that I am not this body. Of course, now, how can you show the molecules are changing? That is also another question because molecules are only inferred. Okay, so like dehino asmin yatha dehe kamaram yavanam jara tatha dehantar praptis dhiras satrime. So this shloka Bhagavad Gita is sort of indicating to this proof actually. So it is changing actually, and our own conception about myself. Today if I am thrown out of my job, I have a different identity immediately. If my body gets paralyzed, I have a different identity. If my body becomes strong, I have a different... I am identifying myself, I am the same person. So the false is actually contextual. The real ego is there, but you know what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling? Eventually what happens? Well, if one perfects this self-realization, he actually gets a spiritual form for the spiritual kingdom. And that is the real identity. It's like you are now seeing something, you have lost yourself. Yes, you are there. I know I am there. But what I am, that I don't know. We will discuss actually, because I think we are talking the same thing, but it's the language will always put a restriction for the realizations.
Thank you.
No, this is something which all spiritual practitioners go very deep. This is the fundamental question, who am I actually? So,
thank you, Professor Ghosh.
Yeah.
I'd like to now invite Professor Budev Sharma to please present a token of appreciation to Professor Sudipto Ghosh on stage. Professor Budev Sharma, can I please invite you on stage to present a token of appreciation?
I'll come down.
A round of applause to Professor Sudipto Ghosh.